Thank you. My thanks to the ICCF for the work that you do, and especially to all the legislators here tonight whose presence here and their affiliation with the Conservation Caucus demonstrates the kind of focus and insight that this country sorely needs to thrive into the next century. This is an extremely flattering honor, probably richly undeserved. I think that the people who do the heavy lifting, advocating for and educating about these issues are usually not the ones who stand up front. And I accept this only for two opportunities. The first is to acknowledge that most of what I know and all of my inspiration to engage in these issues has flowed to me from my father, Ed Norton, who is here tonight. My father has been one of the leading lights of the environmental movement for the last 30 years. And I'll digress a little and tell you that when my father was the head of public policy for the Wilderness Society in the early 80s, he plastered our family's blue Volvo with a bumper sticker that said "SWAT Watt." And I asked who James Watt was and why we needed to SWAT him, and thus launched my education into the interplay of politics and the environment, a discourse that has essentially never stopped. But whether litigating that particular EPA, founding the Grand Canyon Trust and the Rails to Trails Conservancy, initiating the Nature Conservancy's flagship China program and running it for 7 years, brokering large purchases of timber holdings for conservation, being the chairman of the board of the new National Landscape System Conservation Foundation, or teaching and guiding investment giants like TPG into how to leverage their power to save the planet. Any one of these efforts would be the achievement of a lifetime, and he has done all of them. And I think it's my father and others like him who do the work quietly who really deserve these accolades. Secondarily, I chose to accept this because it was my father, actually, when I was hesitating, who said if I had 4 minutes in front of a significant number of members of Congress, I would try to do something with that. So I am going to presume to take the opportunity to just share one brief thought. I think that we can all agree here that every generation gets called in different ways to a higher purpose and goes through the experience of realizing that the challenge of their time is going to identify itself. They will not get to choose it. My grandparents' generation certainly had other plans when they rose and faced the great battles of totalitarianism and fascism. My parents' generation certainly didn't ask for the upheaval of the 60s, but they carried the torch of civil rights and social equality nonetheless. I am 39 years old. I have very little doubt that the legacy of my generation is going to hinge on how we respond to this revelation that we are altering the natural systems of this planet in ways that will not sustain our civilization. And I feel equally confident in saying that my generation, and even those younger than us, have accepted that this is our cause. And we are ready to rise to the challenge. And when I say that, I don't mean just the gestural acts of putting in CFLs and not using plastic bags, which are important, but I mean that we are ready to face the true long-term costs of overhauling the infrastructure of the way we live. I think that we're ready, but we face a daunting reality, which is that all the advocacy of the last 50 years done by many of the people in this room, all of the advocacy of the next 50 years, will not meet the scale of the climate challenge that we face unless bold action is taken by the political leadership. And with deep respect for ICCF's With true respect for ICCF's ethos of international collaboration, I have to point out that I think it's very, very difficult to effectively persuade other people to pursue sustainability when you do not practice it yourself at home. And when you contribute greenhouse gases at a per capita level far beyond any other society on the planet. We need the leadership in this room to lead a national, bipartisan commitment to legislation that curbs carbon emissions here at home, and we need it to have teeth, and we need it to happen immediately. In one example, in the housing sector alone, in which I know something about, a federal commitment of $5 billion a year over 10 years could result in 40% energy savings in 25 million residential units and 50 million tons of carbon dioxide mitigated per year, not to mention the green jobs that that would create. And that's a big number. $5 billion a year is a big number, but it doesn't seem so big when you consider the fact that HUD currently spends $4 billion annually to pay the utility costs of inefficient government-supported buildings. So the solutions are clearly there. That's the point. The solutions are clearly available, but there's been a faint level of political will. And we have no time, really, for small-scale incremental progress. And so the policymakers in this room need to act with urgency and real seriousness of purpose. For starters, Congress simply shouldn't continue to allow any taxpayer funding to support building of any kind that does not meet more demanding minimum standards for energy efficiency and low carbon emissions. And one of the wonderful things about being in this room with this group of people is that everybody here, I think, recognizes that these are policy decisions that should be easy, that transcend partisan economic philosophy and achieve that rare benchmark of true common sense. I was watching CNN today, and they ran the full text of Martin Luther King's "I Have a Dream" speech today on this day where we celebrate his life and his vision. And I was struck. He speaks of the urgency of now, which a lot of people, including our new president, have referenced. But his next words, which I had never heard referenced, were equally profound. He said, "We have no time to take the tranquilizing drug of gradualism." The tranquilizing drug of gradualism. I think that is an apt warning for a different but equally righteous cause, and that the future will not forgive us for being timid or squandering a new generation's commitment and resourcefulness. So thank you very much for this honor and this opportunity, and good luck.